Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Avatar Weekly discussion topic video. And I haven't done one of these in a while. Main reason for that has just been because the last couple of weeks have been just really busy with other stuff. Primarily the releases of stuff like North and South Part 1, Smoke and Shadow hardcover, Korra poster collection, Avatar coloring book, then New York Comic Con happened and the reveal of the Korra comics, and it was a lot of news, new release focuses, and so these videos kind of took a back seat while that was going on. But back now, hopefully they'll be more regular. I will actually do them weekly from here on out, and I think I've got a good topic to kind of come back with. So the title for this one I don't think is the best. I couldn't really think of the best way to word this just as a quick YouTube title. But to explain it further, I think I've managed in the last couple of weeks to really kind of get down into what I think is the core of any issues that I have with Book 4. And it really comes down to like one specific kind of scene, moment that they just didn't give enough time to, that left a lot of other plot points, developments relatively underdeveloped within Book 4. So if you've watched any of my coverage, listened to any of the podcasts where I've talked kind of generally about Book 4, you'll know that I don't consider it my favorite book, but like it's up there. I go back and forth on like it's my second or third favorite book, but definitely it's one of those ones where there are aspects of it that I definitely kind of criticize because I think a lot of it's kind of sort of underdeveloped. So I'll go into what those criticisms are and then explain why they all kind of have their roots in being underdeveloped in just one scene, not being given as much time. So the main criticism I would have for Book 4 is with Kuvira, and the reason that's my main one is because fundamentally with Korra, each book being its own thing, having its own villain, when that villain, there's a problem with that kind of story arc with the villain, it has a big impact on the overall book. So that's why I consider this a quite large criticism of Book 4. And that is just that I never fully kind of got behind why Kuvira turned so evil, why she became so villainous. They explain it kind of very last minute in the show, in the spirit world, Kuvira and Korra, after Korra blocks the attack. And it's like, okay, Kuvira has this kind of tragic backstory where she was like abandoned by her parents and she never wants to feel that way again. That's why she wanted to kind of have control over this empire that so that she could make it so that people from the Earth Kingdom, Earth Empire would never feel that way again. No one would ever be abandoned. She would have control and she'd make things the way she wanted so that a Kuvira would never happen again. What happened to her would never happen to anyone else again. That's cool and all. The problem is it doesn't really explain where the villainous side comes from. Like, where did the whole idea of re-education camps come from? Where did the hatred for people from the other nations come from? Because the re-education camps are mainly, yes, people, Earth Kingdom people who opposed her, but she put everyone who was not originally from the Earth Kingdom into them. So Fire Nation citizens who happen to be now living in the Earth Kingdom, Water Tribe citizens, she put them all in there. Like, you can see that in characters like Anna and Baraz, that she does it with them. That she's that kind of upset about it. And then even to the point where she's completely anti-United Republic and wants to take that back for the Earth Empire. I just never quite saw the development that turned her from the person who wanted to bring peace back to her nation so that she would no one would ever be like her and have a tragic kind of childhood like her, to just a full-on villain that she becomes towards the end, where she's willing to sacrifice Batar to fulfill her goals and is creating this giant colossus that's going to just march and kind of destroy everything. And it's little things like that that are just kind of missing from Book 4. Like, where was the development there? Like with Amon, the backstory explains why he hates Bending. Bending, in his mind, destroyed his family. You see it there and then. The kind of Tonrock flashback actually gives Unalaq a decent flashback as well, in that you show the moment where he manipulated things to get himself the position as Chief of the North and get Tonrock banished. That's why Unalaq's in the position he's in. You can see the way that that's done well. The kind of main thing behind those characters is well explored, versus Kuvira, where they do enough to where like most people accept it and are fine with it and think she's a good character, and I think she's a good character too. I just feel it's not as explored in the best way. Now, some of the other things that kind of I also want to criticize, that again I will link back to one kind of key moment. So Kuvira as a villain, and just how villainous she is, how much she kind of seems to towards the end be completely Earth Empire and against every other nation. The second one would be a smaller one, but Opal's severe dislike for Kuvira. I get what they're going for here, in that Opal, going around as an airbender, is able to see the aftermath of all these places that Kuvira goes to, and can see that she's the one causing that. Plus the fact that she, from Opal's perspective, Kuvira stole her brother, Bataar Jr., away from them, and kind of created this rift within the family. It's just very underdeveloped, to the point where, like, anytime you see Opal just appear on screen and she's super angry anytime Kuvira is around, it's just not addressed enough, to the point where, like, what they really never focused on the fact that, like, Opal is upset because Kuvira has really influenced all the people around her. They just kind of have Opal be annoyed in almost every scene that she's in. And again, it comes back to the scene I'll address in a couple of minutes. The next criticism would be Kuvira and Bataar's romance, their relationship full stop. They just introduced them in book 4, and they're engaged, they talk about it a little bit, but in general, you don't get a ton on what their relationship actually is. Then you get episode 11 of book 4, Kuvira's Gambit, and you see how much Bataar cares about Kuvira. He is completely committed to their relationship, but you don't know how she feels about it. Then you have the big moment where she basically says she loves Bataar, but fires on him anyway to get everything out of her way. And again, it links into the first criticism I had, where it's just like, where did Kuvira become this cruel? And then the other thing is just like, what exactly is her relationship with Bataar? It's very underdeveloped. Like, what way are we actually meant to take Kuvira in that moment? That she has killed the person she loves to fulfill her goals, or that Bataar never mattered in the first place. She just wanted him because of his inventing skills to further the Earth Empire, and ultimately she was never massively committed to the relationship in the first place. The fact that that is a question that is valid to ask and there's no clear answer to it speaks to a kind of a problem, that it's very, very underdeveloped as a kind of concept within the series. Other kind of little things come up as well, as I'll address. The other one would be Sue and Kuvira's relationship. They establish basically at the end that Sue adopted Kuvira, basically. That to some extent Kuvira was a daughter, another daughter in that Beifong family. And it's shown back in book 3 by the fact that Sue has Kuvira in pretty high positions. Like, she's the head of the guards basically in Zaofu, and her kind of like right hand woman basically. That kind of speaks to a strong relationship, but we never see it really be anything in any way resembling mother-daughter. Even in book 3, in book 4 they don't, but then they address it like it is. And there's a few important scenes towards the middle of book 4 where they highlight that, the fact that Sue and Kuvira are talking and they're kind of at odds with each other, they're real enemies, that there's a problem here. And then you have moments like Sue willing to go and basically take out Kuvira when she comes and fights Zhao Fu. They just really underdevelop what that relationship is, that this is a person you raised from a very young girl, yet you're just willing to kill her because she went against you. Like, what does that say about Su Yin? But also, what does it say about Kuvira, that there's nothing there for the woman who did take care of her for all those years? It just, for me, was very underdeveloped. And they're the 4 kind of key points I do want to mention. Like, I would probably add in, like, they probably should have also addressed how Bolin in the first place came to join Kuvira, and why she kind of let him get to the point where he was such a high up position in her organization. So, like, that's kind of 5 kind of important plot points within Book 4 that I feel are underdeveloped. Now, other people may be fine with them, but for the sake of this video, I'm pointing them out as kind of underdeveloped plot points. Not that they're all terrible, but just that if they were developed more, Book 4 would be amazing, because we'd really know a ton about Kuvira. Where it all comes back to, what I'm trying to get at with this video, is that the reason these are underdeveloped is because there's one key moment that kind of causes all of these things to happen, that they touch on in the show, but only for a minute, when it should have probably been almost a full episode of flashback. That being the planning, lead up, and actual how it happened of how Kuvira got everyone together, started her relationship with Tar, and actually left Zaofu. The moment that betrayal happened should have been covered in so much more depth than it actually was within the show. And as I said, it all relates to this. Opal, we could have seen what the family's reaction is to Batar leaving with Kuvira and this sudden betrayal. That would have been impactful. You would have addressed, I suppose, through Kuvira's plan, how she feels about Batar. Were they dating prior to this? How much did she know about Batar and his skills before this? The other plot point would be Batar and his father. That is a plot point that they address a ton of times, that there's real animosity from Batar Jr. towards his father, as if he feels like he's not good enough. And they kind of address this also through Varric and Batar Jr. in that Varric thinks he's a genius and always kind of shuts down Batar, and then in the invention of the Colossus is the one thing that proves that Batar is actually a kind of genius level inventor. Through that flashback and Batar making his decision to leave with Kuvira, we could have got some exploration of his relationship with his father. Maybe he had all these ideas for inventions that were more weaponry, but because of the ideals of Zaofu, maybe his father shut them down, wouldn't let him actually make these kind of blueprints that he had. But Kuvira then comes across these blueprints and is like, okay, that's interesting. And then when she makes the decision to become the Great Uniter, knowing that's after that scene where Suyin doesn't want to kind of take over and stabilize the Earth Kingdom, that's a clear thing for Kuvira, that I can get Batar with all this technology that he's inventing. I can make that a reality if I get enough kind of rich people from Zaofu on my side, and we can really do something here. So that would have addressed that plot point. It also, as you maybe follow along the initial stages of Kuvira becoming the Great Uniter for the first time, you would have developed the whole idea of her starting out with a good goal to stabilize the Earth Empire. Because I don't think when she initially set out on this quest that it was always to become the kind of tyrannical ruler that she was. I think that developed over time. Once she saw the impact that she could have on the towns that she went to and the way that they treated her, she must have become aware that she likes this. She likes the fact that she can make people bow down to her and call her the Great Uniter and basically grovel before her, and that is what changed her. As it is in the show right now, we just assume that she's always kind of felt this way and maybe took her hatred of what happened to her in the past too far, and then she became the tyrannical dictator that she did become. As well as that, you probably would have... I think the main thing we should have got more on is just the reaction of the family. What was Sue's initial reaction? Like, in depth, the aftermath of just Kuvira leaving and taking all of these people with her, including one of her sons. What was Batar Sr.'s reaction to this? Did Opal find out later, or was she actually there in Zaofu when they left? All this sort of things, like if you had actually addressed that important scene, expand that scene of Sue and Kuvira at the meeting with the world leaders where they ask Sue to take over and stabilize the Earth Kingdom. Follow Kuvira as she kind of stews over Sue's indecision and makes her own decision. How she comes to plan and get Batar on her side, get the other people of Zaofu on her side, and form this Earth Empire. Where does she start on her journey? Does she take over Bossing Say first, or what? What's her first big victory? What are the moments when she decides that she needs stuff like re-education camps and all this? that's what was needed here, because as I said at the start, the first 8-10 minutes of this video, I think the criticisms I presented are fairly valid in that there's a lot of stuff that's just fairly vague about Kuvira. Her motives aren't the clearest compared to other villains. They're there, but they're not quite there. And it all comes back to that scene. Them not going into that really big scene, not addressing what the true nature of her relationship with Batar is, how close she and Sue actually were. If you had that scene, you would have really got behind the moments when you have big confrontations between Sue and Kuvira, because they would have really hit home the idea of this is basically mother and adopted daughter going at each other here. How has it come to this? You would have understood Opal's anger throughout the entire book, that Kuvira has done this to Batar to kind of turn on the whole family, has kind of really set Zhao Fu back in terms of everything that she's done, and just all of this stuff. The other one would be Bolin. When exactly did Bolin come on board? Did she choose to find him and oh, he's a lava bender, he could be useful to me, at least taking him out of the enemy's hands or whatever? What was her plan for Bolin? I get that initially he would have joined up. Again, I do think her goals were good in the first place, that she always wanted to do this, but did Bolin just join because he saw that what she was doing was good, and then over time she started to make these deals with the leaders and start the re-education camps and do all this cruel stuff, have slaves basically after they left the towns? That to me is the biggest kind of point that's missing. How did she go from wanting to protect everyone so no one is ever like the orphan Kuvira from her past? How do we go from there to her suddenly enslaving people after she goes to visit these towns, creating re-education camps and all of this stuff? I don't want to go on too much more before I start repeating myself, but I definitely want to know your guys' thoughts in the comments on this. I still like Book 4. I want to make that very clear here, that I'm not just creating this video to heavily criticize Book 4. I really like Book 4. I really like Kuvira as a character, but she would have been probably one of my favourite villains, if not my favourite villain, if they had really fleshed out all of these things and all these criticisms that I've mentioned in this video. As it is now, she doesn't have the depth to me that some of the other characters, other villains especially, do. And that's why Book 4 for me falls a little flat compared to some of the other ones. I think I've presented myself reasonably okay in that I think I've managed to kind of pinpoint what they did wrong, and it is not showing flashback of that really key scene. Now, I also, on that front, another flashback I think they maybe should have done is perhaps show some of Kuvira's childhood, show the impact of her parents leaving her, the situation that happened there, show Su Yin taking her in and, her life kind of changing at this point. Maybe there actually was a relationship between Sue and Batar. Maybe growing up together, they kind of came together over time but never pursued anything until Kuvira decided to leave and start the Earth Empire. Maybe that's something that happened. It's just little things that we just don't know. And as I said, it affects key important moments, like the cliffhanger, big cliffhanger ending of Kuvira's Gambit. Did she care about Batar, or did she not care about him at all? We still don't know. And that's the problem. So, as I said, in the comments, let me know, what are your thoughts on what I've presented here today? Do you agree with the criticisms that I have of Book 4? Do you think that flashback could have really helped to flesh out everything else that kind of went on in the book with regards to stuff like further explaining Opal's anger, kind of further explaining why she pursued Bolin, how the relationship with Batar came about, her relationship with Sue, and I think most importantly, how she eventually went down that path of kind of becoming evil overall. So definitely leave those in the comments below, but I'm going to end the video there just by saying links to my Twitter and Tumblr are in the description if you want to follow me on social media, and if you want to support my channel, links to my Patreon and also my PayPal donation link are there if you want to help support my channel so I can make more videos and better videos. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.